نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم ربنا وجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذريتنا أمة مسلمة لك وأرنا مناسكنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Respectful honorable friends, the verses that I have recited to you were a few verses which we didn't complete last week. These verses are the final verses of the current ruku. However, I've left another one verse, the last verse, out, as the last verse itself needs one full Qur'an Tafseer session just for the verse itself. The verses that I've recited to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam rebuilt the Kaaba. In the previous verses, mention was made of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam to build the Kaaba and to purify the precincts of the Kaaba and the Kaaba itself. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions to us that, and remember, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ. And remember when Ibrahim yarfu raised قَوَاعِدَ, the foundation, مِنَ الْبَيْتِ, of the house, وَإِسْمَاعِيل, and Ismail. That remember the time when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam raised the foundation of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala along with Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam. The wordings of this verse itself indicates that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam wasn't the first person who built the Kaaba, but all he did is yarfu Ibrahim al-Qawaid. He raised the foundation which was already there. It was there in the form of a pile and a heap of sand. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam along with Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam rebuilt it and they raised its foundation. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. After Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam had completed this great task of building the Kaaba, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made a dua to Allah in which he says, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam had sacrificed a lot for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then on top of it, he had left his home in Sham and he came to Makkatul Mukarramah. And then he carried out another great task. The task here was now to rebuild the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So his task wasn't just to build any masjid or any other house, but the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the same time, he didn't only just do a bit of refurbishment on it, but he actually rebuilt the Kaaba itself. Because there's no sign, the Kaaba itself wasn't there, it was just a heap of sand. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam along with Ismail alayhi salam carried out a great task. There was a great threat that after carrying out this task, it could have led to great pride in Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam. In order to remove this, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam immediately made this dua, that رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. That, O Allah, O our sustainer, تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا, accept from us. That this great mission that you have given us, It is because you have honored us that you have granted us this great honor of carrying out this great task. So this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whoever He chooses, those are the ones who Allah ta'ala accepts for carrying out great tasks. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had chosen Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam for this great task. So they make dua to Allah that Rabbana taqabbal minna, that you have created us and you know that we are weak. Because we are weak, then obviously there's going to be deficiencies in our deeds, in our tasks. So if there's any deficiency in the task that we have carried out, or if it leads, or if it has led to any pride entering into the heart, that look what we have achieved and what we have done, then Allah Ta'ala forgive us and Rabbana taqabbal minna. All the dua we can do is that accept from us. We, in our weak form, have carried out whatever we could do. Now we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that taqabbal minna, accept from us. This dua shows great humility. It shows great humility. Not that when a person carries out a task and then he starts boasting about it, that look what a great task I did, how greatly I accomplished it. But here Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam shows great humility in front of Allah and saying that, oh Allah, whatever we have done, but you accept it. So this is a sign of their great humility, that after erecting the Baytullah, the Kaaba Sharif, whom everybody till the day of resurrection, till when the Kaaba is demolished, each one will face towards it, each one will look at towards it, each one will remember the time when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam built it. So it is one of those achievements, one of those tasks which are going to remain till a very long while. Let's say when a person wants to do something, a person should always choose to do such a deed, the effects of which are going to remain for a very long time. So that when a person leaves this world and he dies, he should have left behind great legacies. That's why when we read with regards to the history and the biographies of great predecessors, we find that why we read their books, why we read about their life is because they had achieved something great in their lives, due to which now we marvel at their lives. They left behind great legacies. And this is something which we should also aim for. Not that we just live our lives as normal and we live our lives and after we leave this world, then besides just a few family members, nobody remembers us at all, because nobody did anything to be remembered. But a person should leave the world in such a way that he has left something behind. He has left behind great legacies by which people are still benefiting after his demise. Either a person does it himself, wherein a person writes such types of books which people read after the demise. Today also we have so many books. The authors have passed away many, many years ago, but we are still reading their books today, and the books are so common and prevail. Every time a person reads it and benefits from it, the author is still getting the reward for it. And these are things that they have left behind. So we always remember them, and we show great appreciation to these people that they have written on such topics, and today we are benefiting from their literature, benefiting from their work. So this is something great that they had left behind. And by leaving such things behind, they will continuously gain the reward for it in the here, whilst they are in the graves. So they had done the task when they were alive. So in the few life years, whether it was 60, 65, 70 years that they lived in this world, in that they achieved such greatness that even after the demise, their deeds are still counted and increased. And not that a person in his life, he just does so much ibadat that when he dies, he can only be accountable for 70 years of ibadat, that's it. And now after he dies, there's nothing now coming into his account, it is just stale now, installment there, nothing new coming in. But a person should do such deeds that even after a person's demise, his account and his balance is always on the increase. That is when people leave behind such great legacies. Either a person himself should do it, or if not, a person should assist in it. Because a person may think, well, I'm not a scholar, how can I write books, or how can I achieve something of great legacy? But if a person himself, according to his own capabilities, can actually leave behind great legacies. in such ways that although your name may not be on the book itself as you are the author, maybe nobody will remember you as being part of the book, but you may have assisted in such a way that just the way the author gets the reward, you too will be included in the reward for many years after when a person reads those books. For example, the author, he does his task of making the research, of writing and researching the book. Now obviously when it comes to publication, for the printing of the book, now the author will need some funding, for example. So now if a person who knows that he himself couldn't have written the book, but he assists towards the publication of that one book. Now whoever reads that book, that person will get the reward for it. And this is also something amazing. That don't think that if you just assisted towards 1,000 copies, now you will think 1,000 copies will be used up in a year or two. How can my legacy remain after that too? But if it wasn't for that initial 1,000 or 2,000, the remaining additions that will continue to come for years and years after your demise and the author's demise wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for your initial help. So in that way, as long as that book is prevailed, as long as people are utilizing that book, you are also getting the reward for it, whereas it might have even been something that you even forgot. In your life you may have given some donation towards it, and then you totally even forgot about it. Maybe you went to a masjid where they were building a masjid, and you found that they were collecting some donations, and you just went there and put 50, 20 pounds or something there. You even totally forgot about it. But once that masjid was built, and the madrasa was built, and then all the students that study in the madrasa, all the musallis that perform salat in that masjid, till the day of Qiyamah, till that masjid is existing, till all the students are benefiting from, you too will be included in the reward of the work that takes place in the masjid. Whereas it will be something that you probably didn't even think of or even forgot of, but because a person assisted in it, you assisted in it, a person continues to gain the reward in it. So a person in his life should always look for such occasions, such opportunities where he can leave behind a great legacy for those to come after. So one thing that Sayyidina Ibrahim a.s. left behind is the resurrecting of the Baytullah of the Kaaba Sharif. That today whoever goes for Hajj and Umrah, whoever makes tawaf of the Kaaba, Sayyidina Ibrahim a.s. and Ismail a.s. will get the reward for it. Whoever looks at the Kaaba also, these great personalities will gain the reward for it because of them accomplishing and carrying out this great task of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as I mentioned previously also, that when a person goes for Hajj, what does he see around him? Everything that he sees are the signs of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. The whole journey of Hajj, dear friends, is the signs of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. There aren't signs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu there, although we do the Hajj according to the Sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu, but all the signs are there of just one Nabi, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the Qurbani, the sacrifice that he made, and the sacrifice that his family made. For a time a person goes there, and he sees, he goes to Makkatul Mukarramah itself, and when a person sees the vicinity of Makkatul Mukarramah, that itself is through the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. As we previously did, what was there? There was absolutely nothing there at all. It was only stone and mountain there. But Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made the initial sacrifice of leaving his wife and his child behind there. And then he made dua for them, due to which he made dua for one thing, which was aman, for peace. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then made that place into a place of security. And a point which I hadn't made mention in the tafsir, but I made mention of it in this morning's this afternoon's Jummah, was that when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua for safety and protection, he said, Rabbij al-hadha baladan amina. He said, Oh Allah, make this vicinity a place of peace, peaceful, secure place. He didn't make dua that, Oh Allah, keep my child and my wife safe. He didn't say, Oh Allah, protect them, but he said, make the place into a safe and secure place. Why? Because if the place itself, the area, the vicinity is safe, everybody, all inhabitants are safe. Whereas if the area isn't safe, but the inhabitants may be protected, but then to a person isn't at ease. You may be living in a war-torn country or a town, where there is no security. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to protect a person, one will be protected. There will be those who will be harmed, and there will be those people living there their entire lives, but they are protected. But although they are protected, but it isn't the type of protection that one wants to live in. True protection and safety is when there is nothing to fear at all. So the person will be protected, but they'll still have to live in fear. So here Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua that oh Allah, make the place, the area into a safe place. So they don't need to fear, neither do they need to be worried with regards to their own personal safety. The area was safe, and if the area is safe, then they themselves are also fully safe. So this is the dua that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made for them with regards to aman and peace. And then he made dua, وَرْزُقْ آلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ, that oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them various forms of sustenance, due to which today when a person goes there, you find food from all over the world present there in Makkatul Mukarramah. So the moment a person looks at Makkatul Mukarramah, he enters and he sees all the vicinity there, all the food there, all the things there, it should remind a person of the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Because when he left Sayyidina Hajar and Ismail alayhi salam there, it was due to their qurbani and their difficulty, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered their prayers, due to which the well of Zamzam was granted to this ummah. Once the well of Zamzam was there, then from the well, that's when people started living there. If it wasn't for the well, nobody would have come and lived there, because where there's no water, nobody wants to live in such a place. So when the water came, that's when people started settling there, due to which then the whole area started becoming inhabited. So all the buildings that we see there, it is from the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then when a person enters into the Haram Sharif itself, he sees the Baytullah. Immediately on seeing the Baytullah, he should remind him of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, that how they must have built the Kaaba itself. In today's time it's easy, you've got scaffoldings, you've got sand cement, you've got all the tools and everything. Imagine those days when there weren't such type of things, how difficult it must have been for them to build the Baytullah. So Sayyidina Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam's one great sign is when you look at the Baytullah, you see it. And then when you make tawaf and you perform salah there, then you should remind a person of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He commanded Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam that they should purify أَنْ طَاهِرَ بَيْتَ لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْعَاكِفِينَ وَرُكَّعِ السُّجُودِ, that they should purify the Baytullah for the people who are going to make tawaf and those who are going to perform salat there. So because they purified it, there is no kufr and shirk that takes place there, and a person is able to make tawaf and perform salat in the haram. And then when a person sits in the haram and he feels total sukoon, he finds that there is no worries there at all. And this is something that a person will experience when you sit in the haram, that you'll forget all forms of other problems and difficulties. And when you find the sukoon, the tranquility, the protection in the haram, then it will remind you of the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, Rabbi jal hadha baladan aminan, due to which all form of blood is safe in the haram, no bloodshed is allowed in the haram. So this also reminds you of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then whilst making tawaf, after you tawaf, you read the 2 rakats salat of tawaf. Then you go to the Maqam Ibrahim. You see the Maqam Ibrahim, it reminds you of who? Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then when you go for the sa'i of Safa to Marwa, what does that remind you of? Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam again, because that's where Sayyidina Hajar ran from one side to the other side. So that reminds you of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then when the days of Hajj come, and when a person goes to Mina, that also reminds one of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, wherein that is Mina, where he took Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam and laid him down there to slaughter and sacrifice him. And thereafter when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam was then taken to the Jamarat where the shaitan is, where shaitan was pelted, how that came about, I shall mention it in the next coming verse. So when a person goes for the whole journey of Hajj, everything there is just signs of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. It reminds a person solely of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. But then too, at the end, after all, this is the ummah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it shouldn't be a case that a person just goes for Hajj, mashallah, carries out his farz, and he only thinks of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and he doesn't think of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Therefore then we see each and every Haji then goes to Madinatul Munawwara. Then each one goes to Madinatul Munawwara, and when a person goes to Madinatul Munawwara, then who's going to think of any other Nabi? Then who is going to think of any other Nabi when a person steps foot in Madinatul Munawwara? And then when a person comes back to Makkah from Madinatul Munawwara, you can't go back again. And then when a person leaves the holy places, he leaves probably thinking more of Madinatul Munawwara than that of Makkatul Mukarramah. And there's great differences in Makkah and Madinatul Munawwara also, dear friends. And the good thing is, there's a great wisdom why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept the distance also so great. Because if Madinatul Munawwara and Makkah were neighbors next to each other, or if the Baytullah was one place and Masjid Nabawi just next to it, then just imagine how difficult it would have been for the Hujjaj. How difficult it would have been. They'll be sitting there in the Kaaba, in front of the Kaaba, but then they'll be wishing, oh, let me go to Masjid Nabawi, if I only have to be there. And then when they're there, they feel, well, I think I should be doing Tawaf instead. So in this way, the Haji will be confused. Where should I be? He'll be there, he'll want to be there, he'll be there, he'll want to be in this area. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy that there's a great distance between the two. So when a person is in Makkah al-Mukarramah, then he is free just to think, look at the Kaaba, enjoy the Kaaba, the Haram of Makkah, do his tawaf and all the things that are there in Makkah al-Mukarramah. And then when he travels to Madinatul Munawwara, he's far from Makkah anyway. So now when he's there, he just enjoy himself in the presence of Nabi Kareem Sallam in the Masjid Nabawi. And then also another thing is Masjid Nabawi has a roof over it, it is closed. Makkatul Mukarramah, it is totally open, and that the reason behind this also is that in Makkatul Mukarramah there aren't any good sceneries. If you are going to look also, all you see is just mountains around you. So Allah Ta'ala has made it such that there's only mountains around you, so that when a person is sitting there in the haram, he won't get inclined towards going to see some other waterfall or some other great mountains or some other lake districts or any other Pacific sightseeing areas. He won't feel like going to there at all. He just wants to be sitting there in the Kaaba itself. He looks like he'll see boring mountains around him anyway. So in this way, his focus will only be on the Kaaba itself. Although people, due to their planning and cunning ways, have tried and made other attractions just immediately around the Haram itself in order to distract the people from the Kaaba itself, this is what mankind has himself done with his own hands. That the moment a person steps out of the Haram, he sees the world in front of him. When he is inside, he forgets. However, some people, dear friends, have made the outside the Haram itself. There are some people who have made the outside the Haram itself. Those people who have been will know that there are so many people who, instead of spending the time inside the Haram, they'll spend more of the time outside the Haram. Instead of making tawaf of the Kaaba, they'll be making tawaf of all the shopping centers. There'll be those people, question them with regards the Haram itself, with regards the Hajj etiquettes and all these things, they won't know anything. But ask them, yes, where can get this cheap and that cheap, they'll tell you everything. They'll know all the markets, the inside markets of Madinatul Munawwara, they'll know all the special stores and that in Makkatul Mukarramah. Ask them where you can get this better price and everything, they'll tell you all these things. Where ice cream is better, where the burgers are better and all these things, more than they'll know that of the Haram. So there are those people who make more tawaf of these things than the Kaaba itself. And there are those people also, dear friends, who perform the salah also in the shopping complexes. Those who have been able to see, as soon as the marble of the Haram finishes, you're already into the various shopping centers. It's been a few years that I've been, but now I've heard it's even getting closer, things are getting closer and closer. Due to which people are even performing the salah in the shopping centers itself, just next to the KFCs and that. So as soon as salam is done, they are the first ones in the queue. Because obviously Hajj time, with so many millions of people there, there's going to be a great rush in queue. So instead of them queuing up in front of the Hajar Aswad and queuing up for the Maqam Ibrahim or other things, they'll be queuing up there for the same KFC that you'll get down the road in your own hometown also. Well, some will say KFC in England is haram, so let's make the most of it there, isn't it? Because you say, obviously you go there, you don't have the haram here, so you go there for those things, so go there also for things you can't get here. And many times what happens is that if a person is slightly late for his salah, when you walk towards the haram, you'll see so many people outside the haram that one will think that the haram is full. You'll get the impression that the haram is full. But then if you go inside, you'll find haram is empty. And then you wonder that's how can people spend so much money and make so much sacrifice just to adorn and marvel at the outside building, outside structure of the haram. There'll be those who just sit outside the whole time and just look at the walls from outside and won't even go inside and look at the Baytullah, the Kaaba itself. So this is one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had originally just made things simple and plain, scenery so plain in Makkatul Mukarramah, so a person doesn't dwell and become inclined towards the other attractions of Makkatul Mukarramah. In reality also, if a person was to remove the Haramain from these lands, there will be nothing there at all. Nothing worth seeing at all. The atmosphere isn't so good there, the air isn't too good there. There's nothing good there at all. It is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed the lands of Makkatul Mukarramah and Madinatul Munawwara. That's why they become so sacred and so auspicious, because of the haram that is there. That's why you find when a person enters into Makkatul Mukarramah, the haram of Makkah is also in a valley, it's low down, you can't see it from a distance. Masjid Nabi itself, from a distance you can see the pillars. The haram of Makkah you can't just see it from a distance. So when a Haji goes also, the whole time he's just waiting when he can see it, but you can't see it at all. You won't be able to see it. And then when you just come into a certain section, and there out of the blue, you just see and marvel at the beauty of the haram that is there. And that's when a person enters into the haram itself and he sets his sight on the Kaaba, the Baytullah for the first time, dear friends. There is no other scenery at all that a person will look at and become so stunned, and a person will just stand there for ages and ages just getting over the first impact of the haram. And this isn't just for the one who goes for the first time. Whoever goes there, dear friends, for years and years continuously also, the person experiences the same experience that when a person goes inside all the stairs and everywhere, and when he sees the Kaaba, the Baytullah in front of him, dear friends, the awe that is there, no other building possesses such type of awe. And then when a person goes to Madinatul Munawwara, there is nothing but tranquility and peace there. Why? Because in Makkatul Mukarramah, dear friends, nobody is buried there. The resting place of nobody is there in Makkatul Mukarramah. That's why there's a lot of noise in Makkatul Mukarramah. The beep, the horns and noises, all sorts of noise, very loud and noisy in Makkatul Mukarramah. But then when a person enters into Madinatul Munawwara, not that there's horse and carts there, there's also cars and vehicles and buses and everything there. But naturally it is just so much quieter there in Madinatul Munawwara. Why? Because there is somebody resting in Madinatul Munawwara. So all of a sudden the whole atmosphere just becomes one of great quietness, calmness and great tranquility in Madinatul Munawwara. So now the Haji, when he goes for Hajj, he sees all the signs of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then he sees all the signs of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now going back to the building of the Kaaba, when Sayyidina Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam finished this task, now they didn't start boasting and saying that now Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't say to Ismail alayhi salam, look, we finished it and everything, now let's get another stone and nicely now let's go and carve in it that rebuilt by Ibrahim, Khalilullah, Ismail, Nabiullah, year so and so, and put a plaque over it. That's what they didn't decide that at all. And at that time, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't even know that the Kaaba will remain forever, that whether it would become demolished or not, what would happen to it. All he did his task, and he said, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Oh Allah, accept from us. What we have done it according to how we thought it should be done, تقبل منا, you accept from us. This dua is a lesson to us also that whenever we do any great task in that, we should also immediately make dua to Allah that رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا, oh Allah, accept it from us. We do not know whether it is worth of being accepted or not. And at times a task, something that we may have done, may not even be worthy of being accepted in the eyes of Allah. But maybe afterwards, if we just say رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا, on that alone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can accept it on behalf of a person. Because by doing so, we are showing our humility. That how humble we are in it, that it is only from, because after all, it is only from the tawfiq, the guidance granted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah hadn't granted a person the ability, the tawfiq to do a good task, a person would not have been able to accomplish it. It is not a person himself who does it. It is Allah who enables him to do it. So a person needs to show gratitude to it, and gratitude to it is that a person does not boast on it. This dua shows us that after carrying out a great task, do not boast upon it, but just make dua to Allah, that Allah accept it. We have done the task, now you make the means of our salvation, you make the means of our acceptance, because you accept it from us. So رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, indeed you are the one most hearing, most knowledgeable. You are all knowing and all hearing. You are all knowing with regard to sacrifice that is undertaken in any task that a person does. That's why when a person, for example, a person walks into the masjid and he finds there's a lila box outside the masjid, for example, there's hardly anybody there, and quietly he just goes and puts his donation inside and just says to Allah, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. After all, إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, you are the all-hearing and you are the all-seeing, you are the all-knowing. You are the one how I may have earned it, how difficult it may have been, whatever circumstances by which I have donated towards the masjid or any worthy cause. Only you are aware of it, so hence you accept it. Not that instead what we do is, mashallah, we make sure that when Imam Sahib is there, after Jummah Salah, Eid Salah, coming out of the masjid, when everybody is there in a big group, all there waiting to make Musafa Salam and the whole people there, and then so that everybody can see, how many are, he's taking out. You get those also, that they know how much they want to give. They've already counted how much is there. But obviously, if you just give like that, it might just seem to be 120 note or something, or just a few. So now, in order to make sure that everybody sees that it's a few, isn't it? These are different ways that people do such type of things. So, great humility, humbleness, sincerity is when a person does in such a way. That's why charity should be in such a way that the left hand cannot see what the right hand does. Charity should be given, sadaqah should be given in such a way that the left hand can't even see what the right hand is doing. Our case is such that everybody can see what we are doing. Both hands will give it so everybody can see what we are doing. And Allah Ta'ala reward whoever it was. In the month of Ramadan also, we had our lila box outside. Normally there, the small amounts go in there. Whoever has any big amount, so they would normally come and give it personally to me. Which is also right also for the sake of a receipt, or instead of just putting it in there, they would give it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. However, there was one person who put 110 pounds, in full 110 pounds, just into the lila box itself. Who it was, only he and Allah knows who it was. But normally, a lot of people wouldn't have just put that amount into the lila box. It isn't an amount that somebody would just go and put in the lila box. However, there was such one person, Allah Ta'ala knows, and he knows who he was. Allah Ta'ala grant him jazaa khair on it. And also all those who did assist. But that person just went and put 110 pounds into the lila box. So, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Allah is the one who knows and hears and sees the deeds of a person. Then Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam at the same time made dua, رَبَّنَا وَجَعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. That, O Allah, وَجَعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ. O Allah, make us obedient to you. وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا, And from our progeny, ummatan, such a nation, such a ummat, muslimatan lak, who are also obedient to you. So here Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, look at the dua that he makes. Immediately he makes dua to Allah. He was a Nabi of Allah. He didn't need to make this dua. And then also he didn't commit any sin. He did such a good task also. But then still he's saying, making dua to Allah, that Rabbana waj'alna muslimayn lak. Make us obedient to you. Meaning grant us steadfastness on what we have at the moment. It shouldn't be that we have done such a great task and then we leave it and we don't maintain it. So he makes dua that make us, me and my child, Ismail alayhi salam, and my family, muslimayn lak, Muslims. Muslim meaning obedient, submissive to you, that we submit ourselves only to you, make us obedient to you alone. So he makes this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which shows the need for istiqamah, steadfastness. And then he doesn't just leave it to that, he didn't just think about himself, but he even thought with regards his family. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا, and from our progeny also, ummatan, such a group who are also muslimatan lak, who are also obedient to you. As the Mufassirin have mentioned, that from the time of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in the whole lineage of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, throughout, there have always been such people who have been obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even during days of Makkah al-Mukarramah, when people were involved in idol worshipping, then too there were those who didn't fall into idol worshipping, and they still remained on the deen of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. This was due to the barakat of the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, where here he made dua for his ummat, for his children and his progeny. Also in it is another lesson to us, which I mentioned this morning also in Jummah. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made a few different duas here. One dua he made was for aman, safety and security. Then he made dua for provision, with regards rizq. And then here he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards the Islam and the deen of his children. Which shows us also what type of things we should also be concerned with. Today we find we are just concerned with regards the first two and not the third. As parents, many parents want that their children should be aminan, secure. Secure as in they should have a shelter, they should have a house. Obviously, you don't want them in the streets. So each parent wants that his child should have a place to live in. And when a person is inside, he is secure. So he wants a shelter. We say Ibrahim alayhi salam also made dua for security, so there's nothing wrong in that. Then Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua for provision, for sustenance. So each parent also wants the rizq of his child, and there is nothing wrong at all in this. However, we find that that's all. We just limit ourselves to those things, due to which parents sacrifice their entire lives just in order to give their children the first two things: a good house and rosy rizq. The father will strive night and day just so that the children can have a good education and can earn good money. And there are those who we know, they do this, they sacrifice everything. The poor father himself won't have anything for himself. He'll be working day and night, merely for what? Just for his kids, for his children. So that they can go to the best of universities, have the best of degrees and qualifications. However, we find the scant regard is given with regards to the Tarbiyah and the dini ta'aleem of the children. The parents will sacrifice everything for the education of the child, that he should have been admitted and enrolled in the best universities, he should graduate with the best qualifications and that's all he's worried about, the dunya of his child. Whereas, here Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam gives us the lesson that along with the dunya of your child, also be concerned with regards the akhirat, the deen of your child. That's why he makes dua to Allah, that make my children also obedient to you. And when he made dua to Allah that وَرْزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ, give them rizq, he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah should provide for them rizq. Not that they should become involved in attaining rizq, so that they should not be taken away from the great mission which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam with, that of Nabuwat. So this is something that is very, very important, because we find many parents, they always go on with regards to the rights of the parents, that teach our children don't have any respect for their parents, you should tell them how the rights of the parents, how they should respect the parents, and these type of things. But at the same time, they don't realize what are their rights, what they should be doing for their children. The same very parents who are willing to sacrifice everything with regards to the dunya of their children, but then when it comes to dini, tarbiyat and ta'aleem of the children, they don't give any regard towards that at all. And then when the same children graduate with the greatest qualifications and everything, and then they come and they don't even don't show any respect to their parents, they don't do the khidmat, service of their parents, they don't value their parents, then the same very parents will come and start complaining with regard to the children. You have those parents who are always complaining that my children are like this, their children are like that, they don't listen to me, they don't do this, they don't do that, they don't read the salah, they don't do this, they don't do that. And in reality, who is to be blamed? It isn't the children that are to be blamed, it is the parents themselves that have to be blamed. And sometimes I even tell the parent that whose fault is it? It's a different case that you made a lot of effort on them but they didn't change, that is in the hands of Allah. But so many times the parents couldn't be bothered with regards to madrasa of the child, the dini ta'aleem of the child, then obviously if you didn't pay attention towards it, and now your child grows up to become a delinquent, then why do you complain with regards to it? If he now has immoral qualities in him, then who is to blame? You're willing to send him away from home to various universities where he lived with whoever he wanted to, associated with whoever he wanted to, that was fine for you. And many youngsters today, they want to be enrolled in universities away from home, even if there are universities close to home, they make sure they want to go far from home. Why? They know at home they're under the leash. They go away, they're azad, they're free. They can do what they want. So many of them don't even study there. The poor father is working over hours in restaurants and petrol stations. What he's doing, working during the day, he's working in the evening, double shifts, just so that his child can have a good education. But what actually happens? Just so that his child can gain some freedom away from home and enjoy himself away from the home and the security of the home. So the child goes there and he does whatever he wants there. And from all those, very few are those who actually study properly. And most of them, they go and they come back with bad attitudes, they come back with very bad akhlaqs and immoral. And obviously this is the effect when they're going to associate with such type of people. When their role models and their teachers are all kuffar teachers, kuffar environment, kuffar places that they live in, then what can a person expect from his child when the child returns home? You can't expect your child to come back as an angel, as somebody that is pure, clean and a good child. If you send him to a filthy and dirty place, you throw somebody into a ditch of mud and that, and you expect them to come out nice and clean, it's impossible. The moment you let them out of your homes into these environments, forget that you're going to get them back nice and clean. It doesn't happen at all. So what happens is the parents are willing to let them go, and then what happens when they come back, you find that you can't differentiate who's the parents in the home. Today the parents have become the children and the children have become the parents. The children tell the parents what to do, the parents have to listen to the children. The children won't listen to the parents have to listen to the children. The son is the father and the father is the son. The father will say, the child will say, I'll do what I want to do. Who are you to tell me what to do? It's my life. This is what they say, isn't it? It's my life, I'll do what I want to do. Who are you to tell me what to do? So the father is quiet, yes. Who am I to tell him what to do? It's his life after all. Who am I to tell him what to do? If I'll say anything to him, he'll walk out. Now he's qualified, he's got his own money, he can just go get a part-time job, he can maintain himself. He'll leave the house, so it'll be I who will be at loss, because I won't be able to get his income then, isn't it? He leaves the home, I won't get his benefits. So what has happened is, the poor parents has now become the children in the house, and the children have become the parents, the rulers in the house. All this is because parents haven't given regard to the dini tarbiyat of the children. So in these verses, these du'as, Sayyidina Ibrahim a.s. gives us a lesson that worry about the security and the provision of your children also. Not that just let them out in the streets so they have no dunyavi upbringing either, they have no money at all, they have nothing to eat. That shouldn't be the case either. Because we know that a person who has dunya, for him to be on deen is also becomes easy. It becomes easy for him to be on deen also when a person has rahat with regards, his ease with regards dunya. So dunya should also be there. But along with the dunya, the deeni tarbiyat of the children should also be there. There is no harm in sending your children for education, secular education, because obviously each and every child can't become an alim or a hafiz. And neither is it constructive or appropriate that each and every Muslim child is sent to the Darul Ulooms and the madrasas. That isn't appropriate either. Because then what will happen is, if every child becomes an alim, then who are they going to teach then? Isn't it? Everyone just becomes alim, then who are they going to teach? And we've already, the amount of alims we have now, and the amount of difference of opinion we already have, if everybody becomes an alim, then imagine how much will be war, isn't it? So that also isn't correct. And at the same time, we need Muslims to be in every field. We need Muslims in every type of department. So for them to attain this, they need to go to the places where they can attain this type of knowledge. So it is good that we educate our children. But it should be in such a way that we educate them both ways. If they are not going to be enrolled in the Darul Ulooms, then enroll them in the universities, but along with it, keep them under your control, and also make sure that they get the correct deeni tarbiyat also, deeni ta'lim. So then whenever they qualify and they graduate with whatever they want to, at least they have graduated with both, in deen and dunya. Then that child, that itself, dear friends, is a legacy. I was talking earlier on of leaving behind a legacy. A person himself, if he's not an alim, but he leaves behind a pious child. And that child then serves humanity, and whatever good that child does, the parents get the reward for it. And so from amongst those things which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has mentioned, that a person continues to gain the reward for it in the hereafter, is also walad salih, a pious child. Because if you leave behind a pious child, whatever good that child does, the parents will get the reward for it. So that itself is leaving behind a legacy. But this will only be when a person educates them both, deeni and dunya. And it shouldn't be a case wherein, for example, I remember Shaykh mentioned that in Karachi itself, once what had happened, there was once a person who with great boast in that he sent his child to study in America, in Howard University. And he kept on boasting that my child is there in Howard University and this and that. And then when the child came back, he had no respect for his father at all. To that extent, the child, what he did is, he made sure that his father would be buried in a suit, and he even shaved the beard of his father. He shaved the father's beard off whilst he was dead. Then in the coffin, he shaved the beard off and said, "No, my father should be buried in a Thai suit." And in this way he buried his father. Who is to blame for that? The same father who was boasting, "No, my child is there in Howard University." Now you found out what was the benefits of sending him there, isn't it? And this is what happens when a person only focuses towards that, and a person doesn't focus towards this. Another incident my Shaykh has mentioned is somebody that he knew. He also had sent his child to America to study. There in Pakistan, in Karachi, they like the green card system. They all want to just get to America and get the green card. So they boast a lot that their child is there in America. Sometimes the child is just there cleaning dishes in restaurants also. So anyhow, they sent him there to study, etc. And he was boasting about it. And then this child came back home after some time, and he got married. He got married to an American also. So once he got home, before they came, the father was boasting that now he's qualified and he's going to come home, he's going to have this job and this, that, and I'll be living a good life and this, that. He was going on about it. After some time, my Shaykh asked him that, "How are things now? Now your son is back, your daughter-in-law is back, and how's things now?" Then he started crying and said, "You better off not even asking. The same son that I thought will now come home and feed me, the same son has kept me as his doorman. He goes out with his wife in his car, and then when he comes, he tells me that I must go and open the gate for him and close the gate when he drives into the house. That's what my job is now. He had great hopes that the child will feed him and give the father good time, but rather now the father is now serving him and opening and closing the gate for him. So this all this comes about when a person doesn't see towards the dini tarbiyah of his child and only focus towards the dunya of his children. So dear friends, this is very, very important that you see towards both and not just one. And then Sayyidina Ibrahim al-Islam made dua, وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا, and show us the manasik. The manasik, all the mufassirin are unanimous. The manasik from here means the hajj. And show us all the principles of hajj, وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا, and forgive us. In the whole building of the Kaaba and all that has taken place, any deficiencies that have come about, tub alina, forgive us upon it, and show us the hajj. That's what Mufassir mentioned that Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam was then sent, and he took Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and showed him each aspect of the hajj. This is the place where Mina, where people will make sacrifice, and then he took him to where Shaitan was hiding there, and he was standing by one pillar. Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam said to pelt him there quickly. And when he started pelting him, he moved to the next pillar to pelt him there also, and then he moved to the third one. On this now also we also pelt the shaitan at different places. And then when they reached the place of Arafat, Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam asked him, Arafta, have you now recognized how to do the hajj? That's why that place is called Arafat, recognition. Arafat comes from Arafa ya'rifu, to recognize. So this was Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam taught Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam the way and manner in which hajj should be done. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ رَحِيمٌ, indeed you are Tawwab, most forgiving, Rahim, most merciful. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua to Allah that whatever deficiency may have come about in our hajj, in our accomplishing all this, tub alina, forgive us, as after all, إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ رَحِيمٌ, you are not only forgiving, but you are Rahim also, most forgiving. So through the fact that you are most forgiving, forgive us and show your mercy upon us, forgive us also. And if we had done wrong and any azab was to come upon us, through your mercy, Rahim, show mercy upon us and remove the punishment that we were worthy of. And then finally, Sayyidina Ibrahim al-Islam makes another dua with regards to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself and the mission of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we shall continue with next week, inshallah. Wa akhir da'wana, and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.